Oh, we got the tweet in. We did it.
Are we live?
We're here. We're live. Kurt was sitting at my desk all weekend doing summer league, so he's messed with my mojo. So that's why we're a little late. But we're here in high definition television, brought to you by DraftKings.
We are, man. Yeah. Final major of the year. I'm pretty pumped about it. Where would you rank him? If you had to rank the four, 1 through 4?
I think PGA Championship is last.
Yeah.
Not just because of the venue this year, but just in general. I would say Masters first, Open Championship second, U.S. Open, although becoming a much more of a banger, third.
Yeah.
And then PGA Champ.
I think I agree with your ranking.
Yep.
I think
only because the PGA Championship, even the past winners photo just looks like they walked out of Charlie's.
Yeah. I think the Masters is just like the easiest one for us to rely on year in, year out. Like the Masters is always a banger.
It's the timing. It's the timing too.
Yeah, it's the first of the year. We have the competitive starvation for it. Whereas the Open Championship, I think we're a little bit more dependent on weather. Not I think, I know. We're a little bit more dependent on weather to produce like the banger of a major that I think a lot of us want, particularly with like the way that modern technology is trending, where it's just like you really need pretty spicy weather conditions to test these guys now at the highest level. And I gotta say, man, I've been diving into it pretty deep the past 48 hours. I'm pretty optimistic in terms of what I'm seeing weather-wise and in terms of the changes that they've made to the course set. It's going to be a pretty tough, challenging, exciting, thrilling Open Championship. So I'm excited.
I read your article exclusive to Run Pure Sports. Sign up today, Run Pure Sports. We have get this. We've got a code OPEN50 for first-time members, first-time subscribers, get 50% off their first month, and that includes everything. Because we're getting into college football now. We're getting into preseason NFL. We got Summer League going on, so OPEN50.
Sweet.
Okay. So read your article, and I watched, Golf Digest. It's amazing, every hole at Royal Troon. The thing I like about this course, and I want to talk briefly a little bit about last week, because it does play into this week, obviously, in terms of some of the games that we saw from players last week. But what I like about this course versus, say, St. Andrews, right, is that this seems more of a ball striking test. Even in a moderate wind. And I think the wind is going to be at least a little healthy. It's going to be cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to be 85 and no wind. But these greens are a quarter the size of St. Andrews. St. Andrews, Cam Smith can get away with basically hitting it anywhere and be the best putter on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong, but this is going to be your game ball tee to green, and your iron game is going to have to be extremely sharp.
Yeah, completely agree with all of the sentiments that you just raised. I think I wouldn't spend too much time looking at all at St. Andrews, just in terms of from a comparative juxtaposition aspect of previous Opens. I think you want to be far more inclined to look at what we saw last year at Liverpool, what we saw at Royal Portrush in 2019, maybe a little bit what we saw at St. George's in 2021, some of what we saw at Carnoustie in 2018 in terms of that one even is going to be a lot more firm than this one is playing. But, historically, Wiley, St. Andrews excluded, Open Championships is a lot about accuracy off the tee, right? It's generally the least distance bias major. It's not that US Open type major Winged Foot or Torrey Pines or even to a certain extent Pinehurst. your Oak Hill PGA Championship venues. Like, this is a tournament where the main objective generally, if it's a good Open Championship venue and it's blowing like we expect it to blow, these are position A, position B golf courses where your main objective is avoiding the gorse, avoiding the pot bunkers, because those pot bunkers are true one-stroke penalties, and that's the case at Royal Troon. And you go back and look at the stats from Liverpool last year, and God, it was so much in your benefit to be accurate off the tee. Brian Harmon, Sepp Straka, Tom Kim, all of these players were driving the ball so straight that year, and there was this direct correlation for them having a bunch of success. And I don't think we will see something that entirely dissimilar at Troon this week. So, I think it's going to be, I said on the podcast I did on Sunday, like, still maybe you get to 17 under, but it looks like the wind is freshening up a bit. And even if a couple guys get to 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 under, I think we'll see a strong test this week.
20, was it 14 with Stenson?
16,
excuse me. But him and Phil just sort of, they demolished the field. I mean, the third place finisher was -6. And that was JB Holmes.
Right.
Rory
11 strokes back of Phil.
Yeah. So it was a little bit
misleading
in terms of how strong the course was. But I agree with you. The best player over the last few years in Open Championships has been Cam Young. Cam Young always does well in majors. For the most part, what is a major demand? Pretty good ball striking, but really good length and accuracy off the tee.
Total driving. Yeah.
Total driving. And you'll call him Morikawa. And then you'll hear a lot this week. It's about not where to hit it, but where to miss, right? On these courses. And that's why you have some of the older, in their 30s, typical winners, is because they have the experience of playing these courses over and over, that they know I need to miss this off the tee. So your wayward drivers, right? I mean, Justin Thomas, we thought was going to win by 12 as of Thursday at about 6 a.m. our time.
Yeah.
And then that changed greatly over and through Sunday. But, Minwoo Lee, guys who were just not, feeling it off the tee last week. It's going to be guys that we can rely heavily on and performed well last week. Rory performed well last week, outside of some brutal misses putting. I can count 7 missed birdie opportunities that he had, or eagle. So I wish I would have seen, I don't really need to see Scheffler to know that he's the greatest ball striker on earth right now. I wish I'd seen guys like Finau. I wish I'd seen guys like Cam Young. But, off we go. And one last thing, because he'll be popular this week because his price was a pre-Aaron Rye absolute nuke week-to-week fest. But again, Aaron Rye gets a top 5.
I got to give you props too, because I thought it was time to sell high, and it was anything but time to sell high. And now I'm sitting here with 100-1 Rye ticket myself at the Open this week.
One of our Discord members, which is some of the fun thing we do, is we'll live chase either wins or finishes in like a round 4, or even a round 3 or round 2 finishing position. So this one member puts 92 cents. He put 92 cents, 0.92, and chased Aaron Rye top 5 live. I forget who the second one was, and I'm going to forget who the third one was. Wyndham Clark top 10, and some random dude top 10. 92 cents, and this was a live bet because Aaron Rye was plus 40,000 to top 5. paid $320,000.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a bet like that in my life. But yeah, that's Aaron Rye for you.
Yeah, we had a really good week in the Discord. It was like my first real DK sweat in a couple weeks. And then Eric Van Rooyen, that was such an awful display on Sunday. And he was kind of, because I got the Wyndham Clark round that I was looking for. He shot 8 under to backdoor his way into a top 10 as a core play. And Eric Van Rooyen and Nikolai Hojgaard, who were both in the lineup that myself and a lot of other RPS members had similar ones that was kind of anchored around Ludwig and Bobby Mack and Wyndham Clark. And it was looking really good there for that morning until EVR and Hojgaard shot a combined +6. But the momentum's good. Like I feel like there were great vibes yesterday. We had a sub win 20K off just the core, right? And so I'm feeling great about the Open. Like I think I think you have a formidable edge this week if you're willing to like do a little bit of the legwork on the weather. And, you know, we're fortunate enough. I have a bunch of folks. I'm not in Scotland, obviously. You can see from my background, I'm still in New York, but I have a bunch of folks that are there that have already shared some great insight onto how the golf course is playing, who's looking sharp in practice rounds. So be sure to check out the Discord for all of the on the grounds updates, because I think at this tournament, more so than any other, based on the weather, that stuff matters.
Yeah, my core last week was Ludwig, Rory, and Alex Noren. Alex Noren produced again.
Yeah,
I produced
he sure
late.
did.
Sure did. We put, I forget what member asked, give me 2 in the low range, and I said Longesk, and I think Southgate bid it, but Longesk was in. I mean, Longesk almost won the thing. So yeah, it was a great week. Really good round. Really good week all around by our team. Pat in the back. Give me claps.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah, I just said the stupidest shit I've ever said in the Discord. I said, what did I say? I'm going to say it because I'm unafraid to take a stab at myself. I said Scheffler will be a lineup decision this week, folks. And then I go, I need everyone to clap to that message. So everyone did. All right. So anything else you saw last week? Morikawa looked great. Rory looked great, minus putting. Rye looked great. Bobby Mack looked great, but maybe selling high.
Yeah. On Rory quickly, because I've been a pretty big Rory defender over the years. And while I have stopped expecting him to win major championships and betting him at short numbers to win major championships, I cannot remember the last time I faded Rory in DFS at a major. I can't tell you the last time he wasn't in 50% of my lineups at a major. And that's worked out really well for me. Whether he's won or not, he has the highest top 10 rate in majors over the last 4 years out of any other player. I'm pretty lukewarm on him this week, to be honest with you. Yeah, I may break my streak on hammering Rory and DFS at majors. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really have as much to do of like the scar tissue argument of that crushing defeat at Pinehurst as it does. I just have some pretty like legitimate red flags in terms of his golf course fit here. There are a couple things that he's going to need to do well at this specific golf course that he absolutely can do well. And I still think that he's like very highly likely to play well this week. I think just in a vacuum, he probably has to be in your top 3 of just like most likely players to finish top 10 this week. But there are a couple things that he's going to need to do very well this week in terms of like having the right game plan off the tee and showing restraint off the tee. And he's going to need to be a really good wedge player this week, particularly on a couple crucial holes on the front nine. I think this is, I know I'm not like, this isn't mega hot take because everybody still looks at Scheffler as the best player in the world. I far prefer Scheffler's outside of price and ownership. If we're just talking my numbers and golf course fit and the skill set that Troon is going to accentuate, I think this is a far better golf course than for Scotty Scheffler than it is for Rory McIlroy.
Listen, in that field last week, which is drastically weaker, I think that Rory had several opportunities to run away with it. I agree, and it just seems like he decelled a little bit when he could have absolutely just closed this thing out by a lot.
He missed a lot of really short putts that were of similar length that he missed at Pinehurst on the back nine. And you're sitting there going, okay, what is the one thing that Rory can do to kind of shut the door on those criticisms about his short putting and leave us feeling confident that was a blip in the radar? No, he did the opposite. Rory had one of his worst putting weeks of the season last week at the Scottish Open, and a lot of it came on short putts inside 10 feet. So something's still there in his brain from whatever transpired at Pinehurst.
Well, here's the other one too, is Aubert looked like a surefire Sunday, just mail it in Ludwig type day. And that was an atypical day for him. I know. I think was it Hewitt in the Discord? Someone was really bagging on Aubert. No, it was Brian Kirshner.
Kirshner hates Aubert, which is like,
what has
he's
he
probably
done?
Listening now. I called him out because it's just so hypocritical. Because like Brian Kirshner bet Will Zalatoris for like a year straight after he contended at the Masters as a debutante, and like all Ludwig has done has almost win 2 of the first 3 majors that he's played in, and like we're still improvement mode with the guy. Like the guy hit 30 of 36 greens and was leading the US Open in his first appearance at Pinehurst over 36 holes. He led the field in putting at the Masters. He almost won the Masters in his first appearance at Augusta. So listen, exercise patience with Ludwig. It's coming. I don't know how I feel about him at Troon this week. It's just a kind of can't play them all situation. And I don't know if he's like in my top 3 or 4 favorites at the top, just because I have a feeling I'm going to be so massively overweight on Scheffler. So I don't know how I feel about him at Troon, if he'll make the cut for me, but Ludwig's going to be fine, guys. Like I don't think that you want to have the take that Ludwig isn't that good. I think you'll be on the wrong side of history with that one.
I don't know if I can't pronounce his name. Go fuck yourselves. There it is. I pronounced it. Does he think this is a green screen? This is real life.
I've done 100 shows with Wiley probably at this point.
This is all real, baby. This is not fake. Course sets up for Brian Harman type again. Same miserable rainy. It's going to be cold. Yes.
Yeah. I agree with you, Jack. Like I actually bet a lot more long shots than I usually do at a major championship. Like I think that this Open, I think this major is like wide open. I think that there's a lot of players that can compete on this golf course. Now, of course, after I say that, Scheffler is going to win by 5. But like, if you go back and historically look at Open championships, because this is the major that is generally the least distance biased, right? We've only seen 3 guys below 25-1 win an Open championship in the last decade, right? Brian Harman is 150-1. Zach Johnson's 120-1. Like even your guys like Shane Lowry, who won Portrush at 70-1. You want to identify guys that are really accurate drivers of the ball, great overall approach players, and are in great recent form, right? And so there are a lot of players that check that box that you wouldn't necessarily think of major winners, but like Aaron Rai checks that box. Siwoo Kim checks that box. Russell Henley checks that box. Corey Connors checks that box. Like all those players are incredibly accurate drivers of the ball that are playing great golf right now that I think are live this week. Who we got there in the background? That was like a really good, I gave good stuff right there. And I feel like it was overshadowed by ladder content.
I wanted to prove it wasn't a green screen. That's it. That's not AI. Men without shadows. This is he's totally going down a conspiracy well. No, I think your points are valid. I think the difficulty this week, now that chair's bugging me. Hang on. Right. Sort of set design. The difficulty this week in a first hand build on DraftKings is that a Scheffler lineup with even a mid-high price guy in the nines makes lineup building very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, 12-8 that's a lot to chew on. And what I meant in the Discord when I said Scheffler's going to be a decision this week is that he's going to eliminate a lot of opportunities or a lot of options for you for players that you want to play. Hatton, Morikawa.
Even like I tried building Scheffler Fleetwood because I really like Fleetwood this week.
Yeah.
I didn't love the remaining salary it was leaving me with.
You're going to have to really believe down low in the sixes, in at least two of those players. And I think that's honestly what people are going to come to the conclusion because there are good plays right now. Adam Scott should have won last week.
Yeah.
Russell Henley.
Yeah.
Super steamed. Probably Sanjay's a bad price. And he is playing well. And then you've got some studs. Well, some guys who've been playing outside their price down low. Victor Perez, Longesque, that make things work. Højgaards, right? Again.
Yeah.
I said last week to Keith, I said this week is going to be Rory and at least one of the Højgaards.
I picked the wrong one. There was actually a guy that DM'd me because Rasmus ended up scoring a fair amount better than Nikolai. That told me I accidentally put in the wrong Højgaard from your article. You told me to play Nikolai and I accidentally clicked Rasmus. And I made way more money.
Did you?
This guy that messaged me that took all my other plays, but put in the wrong Højgaard and ended the Højgaard that I played performed worse than the Højgaard that he picked.
Who was the good Højgaard last week? Nikolai.
Rasmus.
Right?
Rasmus. Yeah, but it wasn't by like a giant margin, but it was enough that with how good the rest of my guys did, it made a real difference for him in a contest. They were the same price too.
And yeah, they're same price, and they were. Now I'm tripping myself up as to who played well at the Masters and who played well at the PGA.
Nikolai.
It's Nikolai. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
These fucking Højgaards. No, but I think that's the decision, right? I don't think you can have a lineup that has much more than Scheffler, Morikawa.
Even that's tough, man.
Even that's tough.
Yeah.
And I think that a one limit super stud or high end stud rule is probably going to be in effect because there are some good price golfers who are, Wyndham Clark, 8K. You've got Bobby Mack. If you like it, I think it could be more of a trap. You got Shane Lowry. The Cameron Young 7.5, one of the best performers, like I said, in Open Championships over the last few years. You got Brian Harman 7.6. That's a bad price. Will Zalatoris somehow gets more expensive this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the tricky thing, and I really like the range between like 6-7 and 7-3. I think that range has a lot of bangers, a lot of misprices. And I would be very comfortable, going Scheffler and then like one guy in the low 8s and a bunch of guys in the mid to low 7s. So
I think
there's
2 guys come out of that range.
yeah, exactly, right? So there's ways
Look
to
at Tagala. Look at Connors.
yeah.
Like Connors this week.
Akshay, I really like. I love Connors this week.
Yeah.
I'm big on Siwoo Kim, Akshay. Look at Sahith and Sepp Straka. So I think there are ways to build a great Scheffler lineup without having to go dumpster diving in the low 6s and 5s if you don't like many of the lower price guys, which I don't, to be honest. Like, I love the high 6s and low 7s, but I don't like the bottom. But I also think, like, I'm not gonna walk Scheffler by any means. Like, I think a great way to do it is, like, I may go 50% Scheffler lineups, that Scheffler, and then fade everybody all the way down to like Tom Kim and Lowry and finish in the low 7s. And then the other 50% of my lineups, like, I think you could build amazing, like, Morikawa, Hatton, Fleetwood lineups. Like, I think you could build phenomenal lineups. I really like Morikawa this week. I think you build phenomenal lineups starting with Morikawa.
Morikawa was the first name I wrote down. Just looking at the course, reading your article, and how he played last week. Again, I remember he was putting for eagle in that short par 4 last week. And, I don't know what happened. He just clipped it or what happened, but it was 17 feet short. And I thought, okay, that could have been the winning putt. But Morikawa lining up this week he may be my heaviest owned. And I do believe that if you have the stones or the knowledge to find out who is that guy, who is the guy in the 5K range, 1 or 2 guys in the 5K range that help you build a double stud lineup, even with a third, guy in the 8s, that's going to be it. Is it a CM?
Yeah.
Is it a Matthew Jordan who played fantastic last week? Matthew Jordan was in some of my lineups. He's 5'8" this week. But one of those guys is going to be there. Saw Gary Woodland on the range. He looked pretty good.
God, I just can't. I
know.
I don't think you need to do that. Not saying there's 100% going to be a player below 6.5 that finishes top 10. Your guess is as good as mine who that is. But I really think that you could build incredible lineups with Henley at 6.7 as your last man in that still have Scottie Scheffler in them. Or that start with Rory or Bryson. I'm not a fan of Rory, Bryson, Xander this week, but I'm a huge fan.
Why not Xander?
It's just a can't play them all situation. Like, I have no issues with Xander. He's got a great links resume. He's played great at Open Championships in the past. He's, again, like, you can't put him worse than the 3rd or 4th most likely player to finish top 10. I don't think he's winning 2 majors in a year. I think if there's anyone that's winning 2 majors this year outside of Bryson and Xander, it's Scheffler.
And I think that the growth of the Xander brand has been. I was looking at the X on his his pants and his hat, his X logo, Xander Schauffele, and I was just thinking, not that he's taken a step back, but the accelerator is just not what it was before the major or at the major. I'm just thinking, I couldn't imagine all the people, all of his new friends coming in and saying, we need to build a brand. Now's the time. We need to build the X brand. We're going to sell 1 million, articles of clothing. We'll partner with Adidas. All the meetings that he has to be part of to build the Xander brand. I'm like, that could be a distraction.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of a hot take. I think that between the disgusting brothers, Xander and Cantlay. Xander's, which is a Succession reference.
What's that?
Come on, what? Succession's like one of the greatest shows like ever on television. You're telling me that you have no like cultural awareness
Nope.
of the show Succession?
Sure
It's like
don't.
one of the most memeable shows on the internet. Like even if you don't watch it, you've definitely seen Succession memes. Can somebody in the chat back me up? Like that's absurd that Wiley has no idea what Succession is. Even if you
Big T
don't
got really mad at me before the show because Rubio referenced us giving away NCAA 25 this week. I go, what's NCAA 25? And Big T's like, stop it with this bit that you don't know everything. What's McDonald's? What's a movie theater? And I was serious. I didn't know what NCAA 25 was.
Who got shot last week? So yeah, okay. Ghost Jam's never heard of Succession. That's a rare miss by me. I thought Ghost Jam was gonna have my back on that one. Anyway,
Logan May's up.
There's no chance that of the 600 plus people watching this show right now that more people don't know what Succession is.
Oh, they probably do.
Yeah,
they probably do.
So what I was going to say is that I think that
your hands are gigantic.
Thanks. I think that the pendulum's going to flip with Cantlay and Xander. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Cantlay grabs the belt for him for a little bit. I think
really.
Yeah, okay. I think Cantlay is going to have a strong close to the season. I like Cantlay this week at the Open. I do.
You know we can safely write off is Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. Those two ding dongs.
Yeah. Particularly JT. I may have to play Jordan Spieth in silence. Like if I do it this week, I liked him last week. It was one of the things that.
So did I. I like him every week.
Yeah, I had an awesome week, but man, I took a huge L on Spieth, and I don't know what to do with the guy going forward.
Let me ask you this. In that range you talked about, 6-7 to 7-2 or 6-7 to 7-3, right?
Yeah.
Who do you believe in that range comes out the highest owned?
Aaron Rai.
Even
though he's a late ad and he's not like he isn't even in the first run of, if you're building lineups on optimizers and sims, like he'd even get added to the DK pricing until an hour or two ago. He's 7.3, Norn 7.2. There are a lot of I bet Aaron Rai, that number's crashed. There are a lot of people that are like not as a bit. This is your winner this week.
What has he done? What has he done to not prove that?
Yeah,
the guy's an animal.
I bet him too. So I think
Tagala will be there too.
Agreed. Tagala, I ran a very early ownership run, and I had Tagala over 10.
I agree, and the reason is, what have you done for me lately? And last week, he did a lot.
Yeah. Sung Jae as well. Like Ghost Jam just mentioned Sung Jae. The
Henley momentum's happening though. The Henley momentum is happening.
Yeah. I hope that's it's a me thing. I hope that is quelled a little bit by the Sung Jae love, because I far prefer Henley this week to M, but I understand the case for both.
Yeah. They got sneaky Burns in there. You got Pavone, who sucked last week. Sepp Straka, who people love. There's a lot. That is
I like Siwoo Kim too. I hammered Henley at 175 to 1. And that's 125 now. I
actually had a vision today that he'd win. That just in my head. He's aggressive and he shows up in majors.
He just finished top 10 at Pinehurst. I think the similarities to Brian Harman cannot be understated, right? Like we have seen, because Zach Johnson did this in 2015 as well. So we have, and to a certain extent, Shane Lowry, in 2019. We have this historical precedent, and honestly, Colin Morikawa too. We have this historical precedent of these players that you may not think of them as like super elite players that bomb the ball off the tee. You know, a lot of them can be found in the 25-1 to 100-1 range, but guys that are playing really good golf at the moment, because I don't think you're going to find your game on a links course, guys that are in really good recent form and are accurate drivers of the ball and great approach players. These greens, once you get on them, are easy. Okay. So
this course has a mix of the longest and shortest holes in the open rota. So there's really not both styles can win.
Yeah. Yeah.
The par 5-6 is long. I mean, it's over 600 yards, right? It's the longest in the rota. It's the longest hole. Mm-hmm. But I agree.
And like distance helps at like every single golf course, including like Harbortown. It's all relative in terms of how much you're starting on second base based on distance. And this is just a golf course that bottlenecks a lot. And it's not advantageous to play aggressively unless you can really thread the needle. Like if you go back and watch what Phil and Stenson did in 2016, Phil was hitting so many irons off the tee. And now I think players will play a little bit more aggressively this year. Technology's more optimized.
It's a little longer, but
yeah, junior golfers are taught to hit driver everywhere. So I think players will play a little bit more aggressively here, like maybe try and hit driver on 3. But at the end of the day, like, man, if you don't get to have your head on a swivel on some of these holes, if you're blasting driver up there, because we're talking lost ball like 5 yards off the fairway.
What did Phil? Did you read what Phil said about lefties playing here?
Yeah.
What did he say?
I took that quote in my article because I thought
that's where I read it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he talked about the fact that it's a different golf course for lefties because, you know, the first 6 holes are playing into a downwind that makes it very gettable. And because he's a lefty, he talked about how, you know, that wind was harder for him, and the wind that everybody else thought was really hard for them actually ended up being easier for them. So like there's this immense pressure to score on the first 6 holes because they're downwind, and then hang on for dear life on the final holes because they're into the wind. And Phil kind of into a cross, and Phil kind of talked about how the easy holes played a little bit harder for him and the hard holes played a little bit easier for him. And that didn't create as much pressure on either side. So it just could be Phil being Phil, but that was interesting to note. I mean, I love Brian Harman this week again as a lefty to play well again at another Open.
I agree. But looking at the leaderboards from previous years, it appears that in-form ball striking, just the names that are generally in the area towards the lead, like Stenson, prime Stenson, or Stenson when he was really feeling it, that dude was, I mean, he was like Vic Hovland times 5. I mean, he was a machine. Vic Hovland may be a bad example because he's terrible now. You agree?
That killed me last week too. That was a real bummer. And
he looked to be working. I'm watching on the range right now. He looked to still be working on it, whatever that means.
Yeah, I just don't think he's sharp enough to win a major right now. I think he can play well at this golf course. He's played really well at Opens in the past. I also do think that this is a tournament where, sometimes at Open Championships, you can just putt from everywhere. Like, you could putt from everywhere at St. Andrews. Troon is not like that. Like, Troon features very small greens. It's not going to play as firm and fast. Like, it's a lot softer around the greens. Some of these greens are protected in the front by bunkers. Like, I really think you're going to need to have a bit of a short game here. And it's just not even like close to fixed with Hovland. Like, you pencil him in last 5 starts minus 1.5 to 3 around the greens. It's tough to win golf tournaments that way. And for that price, I understand he'll be lower owned than like Morikawa. So it's maybe not a completely fair comparison. I'd rather play both Cantlay and Hatton than Hovland this week, personally.
Cantlay is the name that I believe not a lot of people will play.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be under-owned and
more than Rahm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know where Rahm is at this point. He was +9, I think, in 2016. Different player, different era. But yeah, Hideki too, right? Hideki, miscut. That's enough for people to just jump off him last week.
Yeah. He's such I think with Hideki too, like, he hasn't always his Open Championship resume, it's kind of hit or miss. He played really well at Muirfield in his debut appearance in 2013, and then he hasn't been as great at the Opens recently. But like, if we're talking about in form, he's a pretty accurate driver of the ball, great iron player, great short game. Kind of like really what I'm looking for in terms of a course fit, are like those type players of Hideki, Henley, Russell Henley, Corey Connors, Siwoo Kim. All those guys play golf in a Morikawa. All those guys play golf in a fairly similar way in terms of their ability to navigate golf courses with a higher missed fairway penalty. So I like them all.
Siwoo Kim's an awesome driver of the ball.
Super accurate. Won a Players Championship. I don't know if I totally heard some mumblings. I mean, I like the Liverpool Sawgrass comp a little bit last year. And it certainly came to fruition in certain aspects, but in terms of the guys that actually ended up playing well, your Jason Days. But I heard that from somebody that was there that said, like, I am reminded, obviously not aesthetically in terms of how the golf course looks, but in terms of like the missed fairway penalty and, getting your hand caught in the cookie jar if you're trying to bite off more than you can chew. There's a lot of TPC Sawgrass in this golf course in terms of like how you need to be thinking off the tee.
Man.
Does that lead you in a direction? You seem deep at thought.
Scheffler. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
It's like you try to overthink it. You try to, talk yourself as Scheffler because it's more attractive builds that you can build in the 9s and in the 8s. And then you're just thinking, price.
You want to know also why it's a tough call is because he burned everybody at the US Open, right? So that feeling that you have with Scheffler of, oh, you could just pencil this guy into a top 10 and never have to worry about it. Like, you can't say that anymore after he finished 40th at a major on a golf course that we all thought that he should have smashed, right? So, and because of his price, I think he's going to be under 35% this week. I do. Do you think that's maybe not with, me pumping all of his tires right now anymore, but I think he's going to be under 35% at that price.
Yeah. You're playing Scheffler. You're playing him to win.
Well, you're playing Scheffler. You're probably not, there's no Rory in that lineup.
Nope. There's no Bryson. There's no Xander.
Not a Ludwig, probably not
Not
even
a
a
Ludwig.
Morikawa in that lineup.
You can do a Morikawa, but then you've got to really believe in a lower range. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're missing a couple or one that will probably be there. Hatton.
Yeah.
You love Fleetwood.
I do.
Fleetwood, Lowry.
You know who we haven't talked about?
Cam Smith.
Yeah, but what about our guy Finau?
That's the one thing. That's the one thing is the one guy I wish I would have seen him and Cam Young. I wish I would have seen them play last week so that it'll make my decision easier as to whether or not to play or not to play. Tony Finau is very comfortable at Open Championships. Tony Finau's a mutter. Tony Finau's very good in wet weather. In his Nike rain suit, he looks beautiful. It's one of my favorite majors for him. I just like him in these sorts of environments. I want to say he's a creative shot maker, and there are very few on tour. Andrew, right?
Finau.
You missed it. No, I said he's a creative shot maker, and you were supposed to laugh because you hate that term. Because in the Discord today, we were calling Tagala a creative shot maker.
You know what's funny about that too? Like I was yelling at people for touting creativity at Pinehurst because it's just completely unquantifiable. And then Tagala hits like the most creative shot at Pinehurst. Like, do you remember that little bump chip that he holed out from over a bunker?
Maker. Yeah. Cam Smith is a creative shot maker.
Tony
Finau's a creative shot maker. Tony Finau's creative because he misses every fairway.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
No, I think Finau's that guy. You'll have to tell me whether or not it's a course fit for him in terms of what you believe.
100% is. 100% is. I love Finau as well. I would be a little concerned about his ownership. I think that he'll be pretty popular this week, but like, let me ask you a question. Who's the highest owned on the slate? I think it's Colin. I could be wrong about that. It's still really early. No place really has ownership projections out. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but I'll tell you why I think it's Colin. First of all, he's playing unbelievably well. Like, he's playing out of his mind right now. He hasn't finished outside the top 20 since prior to the Masters. He's been relevant in every single major championship this year. He's won an Open Championship in the past. And he's at the rare price point where if you want to play him in Rory lineups, you can do that. If you want him to be the first guy in your lineup, you can build great lineups that way. And there'll even be some loonies that put him in Scheffler lineups. He's just cheap enough where he could be the first man in or even like the second or third man in.
Right now, projections are showing Scheffler's the highest owned. I would say that a lot of people want to start there, but then end up saying, I can't not play these other one or two that I have to play. I would be surprised if the Scheffler is the highest owned, not because he's not the best, not because of anything else, is that he just makes lineups difficult.
Just the price. Yeah.
Just the price. I don't think Schauffele, again, recency bias last week, didn't play as well as expected. Rory will be owned. He always is.
Yeah. Who's higher owned, Rory or Scheffler? It's got to be Rory, right? It's got to be Rory. People are doing it this week. Like I know multiple people that are just
I think it could be because you save $1,400.
Yeah.
And people are like, you know what? They can talk themselves into it. Yeah, Rory's going to play better this week.
Yeah. And from a DFS perspective too, like playing Rory in DFS is very different than declaring that Rory is going to win this major, because I understand at that price point, you're wanting him and expecting him to win, but the guy doesn't finish outside the top 10 in majors anymore. He just rarely ever does it.
No.
So, you can play Rory in DFS, and a lot of people will, without being like, oh, I'm lining up to bet him at 8-1. He's safe.
He's safe. Yes, he is very safe. And a few more made putts last week, and he's a winner. And then you're talking about 35% Rory. So that's it. I mean, I think it's just they've really put a premium on Scotty Scheffler in a major, in a field of awesome golfers. They've really put a premium on his price because oftentimes, there are noticeable players in the 5K range that you're saying, I'm safe playing this American golfer on this tree-lined Parklands course this week because I know he has experience here. I don't think we know enough about those 5K golfers in a major at the Open to say, yeah, I'm comfortable playing them. I think that's difficult. I think that just, they made Scheffler, as I said in the Discord, and people made fun of me, something to think about this week. There you go.
Who's your winner?
Scheffler. No, I mean, my gut instinct is that it's Morikawa. That's my gut.
Yeah. I think that's like the most sensible pick. I really do.
It's also possible that Scotty could win and not be in the winning lineup. It's possible, but it depends on the score, right? I don't believe we're getting a 17 under week. Do you?
17 under?
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me. But
wow, okay.
It's just, I think it's very viable that like one or two guys lefts and separates. Like we could have a 17 under winner where two guys are double digits under par, right?
But you don't believe it's going to be like a 4 under win, right?
No. Okay. But, like Brian Harmon won at 13 under last year and second place was 6 under. Sometimes these conditions are pretty conducive to players separating. So I think it'll be like maybe a little bit easier than Royal Liverpool, but not by a ton, right? Yeah. Royal Liverpool was 13 under par, 7 under par, second place. It's pretty tough.
What about eagle opportunities here? I mean, that's the thing with
none.
That's the thing with like none. That's the thing with ISCO in Kentucky is that even some guys who weren't performing well in terms of the final finish, they had 4 eagles on their card in 2 days. You had eagles last week at the Scottish Open. It changed the game for like Eric Cole. Finished, I think, -7, but Eric Cole had he said eagles. Yeah. So in terms of placement points for Scotty, I do believe the winner is going to be in the final lineup, even if it includes Scotty, just because those random streaks and eagles it's not going to be like a -30 finish.
Yeah. Like if you're playing in like the contest that like Kobe will always fade Scheffler, right? Like if you're playing in like high stakes, heavy irons, smaller contests where everybody's building in the same way, I've seen Kobe win hundreds of thousands of dollars without the winner.
You take the gamble.
But
40% of your players are playing Scheffler. You don't play him. I get that. And then if he wins, then you see the tirade on Twitter from Kobe about how much he hates the United States.
Yeah, but you're not winning. I don't even think like you're not winning like the $5 or the $25 milli without the winner in your lineup this week.
Who's your winner? You want to say the same thing.
I listen, I think that like if you're just telling me who are the 2 most likely players to win this tournament, it's Scheffler and Morikawa. Now, I didn't bet either of them. I bet like 9 guys that probably won't win. Because that's
the philosophy. It's like, okay, who's going to win this week? Morikawa, Scheffler. Did you bet them? No, I bet 9 other guys.
I bet 9 other guys at like 100 to 1.
I put Kurt Kitayama. I bet.
Yeah,
Chris Kirk.
I'm gonna say 45 to 1. Patrick Cantlay gets off the.
That's an insane call. It's an insane call. But I like it.
He almost won at Pinehurst. Yeah, I'm like, what am I going to say? I wanted to say Fleetwood or Finau, and I feel like that's more of a meme to say Fleetwood at this point, even though I think Fleetwood's going to have an awesome week, and I bet him too. He's the lowest guy I bet at 25-1. Everybody else is above 45, 50. Most guys are above 100. So
I may just fade this entire top range. Just fade him.
yeah. The one thing I'd say about Morikawa that worries me a little bit is I don't think you can miss right on this golf course. Like if you're looking for a reason to get off Morikawa at high ownership, I would, and this is one of the reasons why I really like Corey Connors and I really like Tommy Fleetwood, and maybe you could use this as a positive argument for Rory. I think if you start,
High draws.
I think if you start missing right on this golf course, you could be in like all the out of bounds is right. And maybe that's why lefties have played well. But all the out of bounds is right. And so if Morikawa has his poofy fade that gets caught in the wind, that could be a problem for him.
Trouble for, yeah.
So
think of who the guys are in trouble at that point.
Yeah, I still love Morikawa this week. But if you're looking for one reason, if you want to get off him, is that if he starts missing right off the tee on this golf course, he could be in serious trouble.
Got it. Noted.
Sweet.
There you go. We'll talk Wednesday.
Premium show, 8 p.m. I cleared my schedule. We running it back?
I think we should.
Okay, sweet.
When's lock? Is it midnight? Is DK lock midnight? Ghost jammed?
Something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're thinking of doing a show up to lock.
There you go. There you go.
Let's go. All right, man.
Later.